Hello everyone and welcome. My name is PMFA and I'm here with Dr. Alisha and we're about to go into a Q&A for menopause. But before we do that, I want to just do a brief introduction of my guest today, which is Dr. Alisha, and we're actually recording on 2 Facebook Lives, so we're on her Facebook Live as well. So I just want to introduce myself to your audience as well. But let's start with you.
Oh, thank you.
And so, Dr. Alisha, how long have you been a doctor? And you're a doc. Just kind of do your bio. You're a doctor of what, and so my audience can understand.
Great. So, thank you. I am a doctor of naturopathic medicine, and so the difference between an ND for naturopathic doctor and an MD is that our medical school training is different.
Okay.
So we still go to a medical school,
Okay.
but we learn much more than just pharmacy.
Okay.
That's where we learn nutrition amongst of probably 10 different healing modalities.
Okay.
Botanical medicine, homeopathy, etc.
How many total years is your education?
So it is the same of that.
Same as a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a long
Okay.
time.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So 8 years.
It's 8 years, so you're learning a lot of the same stuff. Just at some point, is it year 3 or year 4 that decides, oh, I'm going to go over here into natural medicine?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It's in year 3.
Okay.
So the first 2 years are identical. That's when we're doing all the basic sciences, and then in year 3, that's where it starts to differ.
Okay, and then from year 3 to year 8, that's everything that you're learning.
So sorry, bachelor's degree is first 4 years.
Okay.
Year 3 of medical school.
Year 3 of medical school.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so if you're a medical doctor, then you have an opportunity to go into surgery and all of these other things. So this is when you choose natural medicine. Is that accurate?
So you would apply to a naturopathic medical school. So it's a different
Okay.
school entirely.
Okay.
And it's definitely a different philosophical belief system of kind of about health, etc. Interestingly though, we still do learn minor surgery.
Okay.
And just depending on the state, it differs if we actually perform minor surgery.
Okay. And are you able to prescribe medications, which really they're not medications, that what I'm talking about anyway, like prescription drugs? Are you able to prescribe prescription drugs?
Yes. So
Okay.
every state is different in which the scope of our license lends to. So here we're in California, which allows naturopathic doctors to prescribe hormones,
Okay.
natural hormones. So that might be thyroid hormone or sex hormones.
Okay.
As far as true prescription drugs go. In Oregon, we have a full prescription rights.
Oh, interesting. So it's based on whatever the issue might be, you're allowed to do certain things, but maybe not all of the items. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect you're not doing a lot of prescription drug, but
Yeah.
anyway, just for my audience to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're excited because we have decided on the 3rd Tuesday of every month
Yes.
that we are going to do these live videos, and we're going to put them on our different Facebook and live channels. So we're thrilled that you're here with us today.
So excited. And
Yes.
and also please let's explain where we're at right now.
Yes. So my audience probably knows, but I'm going to suspect some of your audience will not know. My name is PMFA. We're at Artisan's Palette here in Temecula, California. And I have a little health food store. And I've been open for 6 years. In fact, it'll be our 6-year anniversary next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are growing tremendously. We have a little kitchen in the back. We make our own box lunches. We make our own chocolate. We cook for a lot of people. And then I curate my store. So there's a lot of restrictions that I put on the items that are in the store. So when you've made it in the store, it's like, got it in, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a safe product, and my customers know that. So that's kind of Artisan's Palette in a nutshell.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you here and to continue with this.
Yes.
So we have a couple questions that we want to go through because today's topic is menopause. So I think we just want to know, first, let's get a description of menopause, because I think in the past, like for just generations before us, we really didn't call this menopause, right? It was just another stage of a woman's life.
Yeah.
But now, I think it may have started in the 60s, that it's like, oh, well, these kind of symptoms, we're going to put a name to it, and then there's a little capitalization going on the name of menopause, right? Because it's a big business.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just talk from there, like what is menopause, the definition of menopause, and then that will steer us in some other.
Great. So the definition of menopause is the stopping of your menstrual cycle for 12 consecutive months.
Yes, I know that. Some of my customers come in, they're like, at 10 months, I got it again. Then you have to start again, right?
Then you start again.
Yes.
And that's where, I don't want to go off too on a tangent, but that's where we call that perimenopause, where you are around menopause. Maybe you've stopped for 5 months and then it comes back. So 12 consecutive months without a period is the definition of menopause. And the average age is 51. So average age, meaning it might start as early as in the mid 40s.
Okay.
But it can extend to mid 50s. And even I've seen even some cases even a 60.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be an important piece of a woman's hormonal picture of when that process changes.
Okay. Now, I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago, and the doctor on that podcast was like, oh, he made it sound like a woman going into her menopause in her 50s was like so out of whack that it should be in their 40s. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm 51 and I'm not in menopause, and he's scaring me right now.
Oh.
And it was like, should I be nervous that if you're 51 and not in menopause, that it's like, it should be normal, right? I feel like it's normal.
I feel like it's normal.
Okay.
And I feel like what that means is that your ovaries are still working, still giving you estrogen and progesterone and testosterone.
Okay.
Which those hormones have much more work in our body than just reproductive purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So for a woman, that estrogen staying around longer means that we have more cardiovascular protection.
Oh, okay.
Testosterone, we often think of it for libido, but it's actually really critical for our bone density.
Okay.
So you want those hormones around for a while.
Okay.
So no, don't be worried.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does it have anything to do when you enter menopause of when you started your menstrual cycle?
So that's a great question. There are some belief systems in which if you started your menstrual cycle younger and were maybe have more hormone time exposure, that may be a factor in looking at different risks. I don't have any stats off the top of my head.
Okay.
So something to be mindful of.
Risks meaning a risk that you might go into menopause sooner, or what kind of risk?
Yes.
Okay, so if you started off sooner menstruating, then it's possible that you can be in your late 30s and entering perimenopause.
Right.
Okay.
And again, we want those hormones in balance around for a while for all their benefits.
Okay. So now, when we're going through, I thought it was very interesting when you said we have estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone.
Yep.
Those are the three main ones for when we're menstruating and also going through. So do we know in a menstrual cycle which of those hormones we deplete? Like, do we know, oh, I'm day one of my period and I have less estrogen this day? Does it work like that?
Yes. So generally, when we think of ovulation, ovulation. So let's talk about the cycle really briefly. So a traditional cycle should be around 28 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal to have a little bit of a variance, and what can trigger the hormones kind of do a little bit of a curve at certain days of the month. And so on day one, that is
day one of your period.
Day one of your period.
Okay.
That is when progesterone is low.
Okay.
And that's why often as a remedy, we might give progesterone in the second half. So you're more estrogen dominant in those first few days.
Okay.
Then the second half of the cycle comes, and that's where we want to build up progesterone. That's going to help build up the lining, and then you're going to shed that later come day 28.
Okay, perfect. All right, so
and I know that we have a couple people, so I just would love to acknowledge everyone for joining us live. I'm excited that you're going to post this
yes.
in YouTube.
This will also be available on YouTube. Yeah.
So great. We have some questions here. Would you like to?
Yeah, let's answer these questions. That's great.
Okay, great.
Well, when does it fit into our schedule here? We have a question that says, what causes fibroids? Thanks, Shelley. And we have another question from Shelley, what causes ovarian cysts? Is that a good time to answer that now?
Well, yeah, it's good timing because we were just talking about estrogen and progesterone.
Yes.
And often one of the philosophies is that we may be estrogen dominant. And I kind of think of a teeter-totter.
Okay.
So if I have estrogen and progesterone, I generally want more progesterone relative to estrogen. As you know, you guys, Pia is brilliant, by the way, so I feel like one day we will turn these tables and have an interview on with you answering the questions.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So in our somewhat toxic world, we are now seeing more estrogen dominance relative to progesterone. So that partly sets us up for uterine fibroids and ovarian cysts. There is also another term called PCOS, polycystic
ovarian syndrome.
And that was once explained, and I thought this was brilliant, of thinking about diabetes inside the ovaries. So it can be a blood sugar problem. So Shelley, to answer your question, it's I think of it as more of an estrogen dominance. So I'd want you to look at your estrogen and progesterone, and that should be, there's a certain ratio where you actually can take the numbers that I look at in the blood or in saliva. This talk could probably go on so much longer.
Yeah,
We're going to get back to that. But that's going to help you know if you are estrogen dominant. And if you do like a Google search for like progesterone and estrogen ratio, it helps explain that. So I would look into that, Shelley, regarding fixing those. And those can have big consequences.
Right, and they're painful.
They're painful.
Yeah.
And then depending on the fibroid size, sometimes they are big and they need to be surgically removed. And so I'm not a fan of surgery if we can avoid that. And then that also causes really heavy bleeding.
Yes.
Which then is another layer of problems.
Right.
And so, in naturopathic medicine, we do have a philosophy of prevention. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
100%. Now, on that track of prevention and knowing that we are carrying too much estrogen and then relating that back to the diet, is there tips that you have? I know a lot of times I'll say, let's look at what you're eating. Let's try to figure out maybe there's some foods that are contributing to the estrogen dominance.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Yes, and I love that meat is a big one. I'm so sorry. So here you carry meat that is hormone free.
It's true pasture raised, so 2 levels above organic. Yes.
Actually, can you talk briefly about that? Because I think that let me kind of segue for that just a second of how do we lower estrogen and kind of avoid it? I mean, superficially, I always think about plastics. So I tell people, do not drink, plastic water bottles, because that's a source in our environment of excess estrogens. So stainless steel or glass or porcelain. But then looking at our food. So yes, I would love for you to just touch on meat.
And the industrial oils is a big one, right? Because it's too high in omega-6s, which also contributes to the estrogen dominance. So in the in the food category of eggs and meat, if you decide you want to consume those two types of foods, then in the supermarket you have a choice. You can go in, and the regular meat that we're used to buying, or eggs, is what we call industrial food. So that is the way it's been raised, and if you have more questions on it, you can leave questions in here, but the way it's been raised, just being in a CAFO, which is a feedlot, that whole process is completely different from how a pasture-raised animal has lived its life.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I'm still talking at the industrial level. How an animal lives its life, whether it's industrial or industrial organic, is very, very similar. The only difference is the food that the industrial organic animal has been given versus the industrial, right? It's the same food, just one's organic and one isn't. So you're just having organic soy versus non-organic soy, or organic corn versus non-organic corn. But when you look at pictures of let's say a hen, or for chicken, and you look at them raised organically and raised industrial organically and raised industrially, that you can't tell the difference. They're exactly the same.
Wow.
Okay. Now pasture, the true definition of pasture is the animal is outside on pasture getting its diet, right? So a cow, its diet is grass, right? A hen can actually eat a grain because it has a gizzard, but they like to peck. They like to go in and, so being out on pasture, then the animal is getting its true diet. And the second definition of pasture, so it's kind of like 1A, 1B. 1A is the animal is out eating its regular diet. 1B is the farmer is responsible and they're turning the land. So now nutrient density is a big component of it. So the meat that we sell in the store, we support our local farm called Primal Pastures.
Yeah.
And that's the meat that we sell in the store along with the eggs that we sell in the store. So those two categories, meat and eggs, you cannot get that level in the supermarket. It doesn't exist.
I have a full new appreciation because, we've been popping in and out of each other's lives for a while. And I remember you explaining this to me, but I have a whole new appreciation because of my trip to Yosemite.
Okay.
So what came to mind is now I feel like us humans, we are industrialized, here,
for sure.
Here we are sitting, and it's a beautiful shot, but nonetheless we are inside a building 24/7, inside our cars. We get no exposure to nature unless it's concerted effort. And I was just looking at some research this morning about what that's doing to our brain, the lack of being in nature. And I never thought of if I know I need to be in nature more, the things that I eat should be in nature more.
Yes, because that's what we've been doing, right?
Yeah.
It's just in the past, less than 100 years that we've been, and our bodies have not evolved to do that.
And on our drive from Temecula to Yosemite,
Which is a beautiful drive.
Yes, it is, but we passed, I don't know where the community is, but we passed the cow place where there was all the cows
which you took the 5?
We went through Bakersfield.
Okay.
Just the straight shot from here to Bakersfield Air. But so we saw two different things. We saw one place where it was the 50 or 100 cows in such a small confined, I don't even know if they have room to turn around because they're so packed in. And then later in our drive we saw open land with cows just playing in a big yard, essentially.
Right. Happy, the way they should be.
Yeah.
But, it's tricky when it comes to cows, and I don't want to get too off the topic in here, but it's tricky when it comes to cows. I mean, the hormones, we could talk about hormones with the cows too, but grass-fed just means that the cow was fed grass at some point in their life. It doesn't mean... Yes.
We are
Another
in
question.
Temecula.
The question is, are you from Temecula? And yes, we're both in Temecula right now.
Yeah.
The store's in Temecula. You're from Menifee. Hello. Come on down. We're not far. We've got a lot of customers from Menifee. But the grass-fed just means that the cow was fed grass some point in their life.
Yeah.
That's all grass-fed. In fact, if a cow is not fed grass some point in their life, usually the first 6 months of their life, the breed will die.
Oh, wow.
It needs, so that's all that means. So that's why we really tell people, please understand what local is all about. Okay, it's not just that it's a store that you go to, it's local, and then they're selling stuff from all over the place. So Primal Pastures, our local farm here, just like 5 miles up the road in Murrieta, is a true local pasture farm.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
so
and
great.
the meat is completely different. Your taste is completely different. But let's get back to these hormones rather than the animal hormones.
Yes.
Okay, so a lot of people out there are going to wonder, well, how do I know if I'm estrogen dominant or low in testosterone? What kind of testing can we get done for that?
So, I am always kind of conscientious of what somebody's resources are. So I'd say easiest and least expensive is going to be a blood test,
Okay.
which any doctor really can order. You order estradiol, progesterone, and I like to see free and total testosterone. So often I give an analogy of these two chairs. So if the chair is the testosterone, we are bound to the chair right now.
Okay.
This represents total.
Okay.
If I had a third empty chair, that would be my free.
Okay.
When the hormone is free, it means it's bioavailable.
So you want free testosterone is the point, right?
Yes, because that's what's going to be able to circulate the body to bind to different receptor sites.
Okay.
So I also like to, it's not, a menopause one, and there's two, how you might know that you're fully or around menopause is also looking at a marker called FSH. That stands for follicle stimulating hormone. And maybe you might want to look at luteinizing hormone, or LH. I like to throw in a lot of other ones, but I'm going to stay on topic on
those ones.
Yes.
So, but you have to ask specifically for that?
You do.
They won't just be, like, I think a lot of people think, oh, I went to the doctor, I had my checkup, I got my blood work, it all came back, we're good, and I have no problems. And it's like, yeah, but if you're not asking for all this other stuff, you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's sad is you want to work with a doctor who is going to hear you out, because I've had some patients tell me, oh, I went to my primary care and they didn't want to do my hormones because they said it wasn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why even bother, because I'm menopausal anyway? Well, we still want to make sure that levels are within, a certain range. And so hopefully you won't get resistance, but it's possible.
And if there is resistance, aren't there sites that you could go on the web and just on your own order a bunch of blood work?
You can.
Okay.
So blood work has a lot of markup in it. Let me give you a kind of a case history. So I have a gentleman patient, he's on testosterone. I have an account with a major lab called Quest.
Okay.
I said, hey, I'm going to bill it to my account. You're just going to reimburse me, basically. Testosterone is going to cost you $30 for the free and total.
Okay.
He says, cool, great. He goes to Quest. That morning, they don't look at the lab slip, the order form, and they think that they are charging him directly.
What was it, 300?
Exactly.
No!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So you want to, a lot of times.
That's a total ripoff. Don't do that.
Right. And I just can't help but treat my patient's pocketbook or other people's pocketbooks. It's like, why pay for the same exact test?
Yeah.
And, if it was a different test, yeah, maybe. But,
And Quest is a good lab. I mean, we've heard of, I know a lot of things from Quest.
Yeah, they're a good lab. They're national. But if some doctors have an account with them in which they get discounted pricing.
Okay.
So yes, you can order. There are websites where you can just Google lab work, and I have patients do that. But I'm always like, how much did you pay for those labs? And I'm like, I can get you a better deal.
Could have saved you $250
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. All right. So those are some of the testing options that we have available to us. What about,
do you want me to check I'm going to check your screen if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. I know we're doing 2 Facebook Lives, so we have questions on some of the other ones.
Oh,
those
and
ones are just saying
maybe.
they're watching.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, good. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, if you have more questions, we
Yes.
have another
Thank you,
comment
Heather.
here. I love that you
Um,
treat lab work
like
like that. You're awesome. Yeah, she is awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, what in my pantry can help me feel better?
So,
But we can say that, but we're not like talking about what why don't you feel good going through this process of menopause, right? So we know that some of the symptoms would be hot flashes. That's the big one. Like, I mean, I see people, it's just like, it almost looks like a thermometer. They just come up and they're like, oh my, and I say, oh my God, you're having a hot flash. So there's certain things that can help with that. But what are, before we get into the pantry items, what are some other symptoms that you might feel and chalk it up to something else like stress? And it's like, no, that's because you're in menopause.
so I hear a lot of women, in addition to hot flashes, I hear night sweats.
Yes, that's a big one.
Where
They're
they
soaked.
They're soaked.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yes.
Also weight gain, like,
Mhm.
you know, and not relative to diet or lifestyle changes.
Right. Mostly in the midsection, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another, low libido.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Mood changes, like just feeling more irritable, more angry, less happy, perhaps.
So, and it'll be an indication that one of those three or all of those three are not in simpatical, basically, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to be estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. One of those three or all of those three are out of balance, and that's what we're trying to do, is bring these three main hormones into balance.
Yes.
Okay. You're not going to know which one is out until you do one of these blood tests like you just described.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing, just a quick segue, but we're going to keep on focus here, is the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are two small glands. They sit back here on top of your kidneys, so like lower back area. And the adrenal glands are really pivotal because when we go into menopause, they are helping us keep up with estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. They make it for us.
Okay.
So I kind of joke and I'm like, hey, your ovaries are going to retire. The adrenal glands are going to take over their job. We want to, taking that preventative approach, we want to be good to the adrenal glands
Okay.
so that they are ready to take on that job later.
Okay. So supporting the adrenals as much as possible, even before perimenopause, is a good idea, right?
It is.
So the women that are still in their years of giving birth and parenting, very good idea, because you're in a fight or flight constantly with your adrenals. So taking care of your adrenals is a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Ashwagandha is one of the best things for adrenal health, right?
So should I answer kind of things, a
Yeah.
couple in the pantry?
Yeah.
So, in the pantry, I really like flax seeds.
Okay.
And are you a fan of flax seeds?
You know, I think my opinion of flax seeds is changing over time as I learn more about them and
Yeah.
how they're processed and done. So, you know, a lot of people sit in the camp of it mimics estrogen, and
Yeah.
that's part of why you're out of it. But then in menopause, there's a reason why you want to take flax seeds. So I think it depends on. The topic today is menopause, and I think if you're taking flaxseed while you're in menopause to help balance, I think that's a good idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so Samantha, I just asked a question. How do I know my adrenals are working properly post-menopause? I like
a good
to look
question.
at going back to the blood testing, a cortisol test. So you could do a cortisol AM. There's a couple factors here, because let's pretend I am scared of needles and I just got a needle for my blood draw. Well, what's going to happen to my cortisol? It's going to shoot up. But generally I find I just ask the person when I'm looking up their lab saying, hey, were you scared? What was going on that day? Because blood work is a snapshot of that moment in time. What does it look like? Something more stable would be looking at your salivary cortisol test. You're then spitting in tubes, measuring cortisol. What I love about that is that we're then getting this whole curve to see how your cortisol is at 4 different times a day. So that would be
that's great.
a good one. And then in the blood, I would also look at DHEA sulfate, also made in the adrenal glands, because that is going to convert later to either estrogen or testosterone.
Okay. Wow.
Yes. So back to the pantry, maca. So it's great that you have it in this capsule form, and I would love to hear, there's so many different varieties of maca, but maca powder, I kind of say in the pantry because it can be in powdered form.
I do have it in powder form too, so if you want to put it in a smoothie.
I'm just going to show this one, so let's just pretend that this says maca. So it can come like this.
Yeah, comes in a bottle like this. I'll just show it.
Oh, great. I love when things are in different forms. I like playing with that to say sometimes we are capsule. Sometimes it's just going with what the person needs, but sometimes I like to play to say, hey, if you're making a smoothie anyway,
just put it in. Yeah. Maca loves to play with cacao, so if you love to bake or you love to put it, we make chocolate in the store, and we started when we first opened doing maca chocolate. That's how I got introduced to maca, was because we were making chocolate.
Darn, your trusty assistant, she offered me a drink, and I'm like, I should have taken her up. So yeah, maca is one of my favorites. So what this can do, I generally think of it for boosting testosterone. So when we were thinking about libido, fatigue, you're not putting on muscle. But I know some other qualities. It also balances out, I think, in general, estrogen and progesterone.
Yes, it really tries to balance hormones. So whatever's low brings it up, whatever's high brings it down. So it's similar to ashwagandha, even though it's not because maca is a root vegetable. Ashwagandha is an herb that is meant to be more like
adaptogenic.
Yeah, it's adaptogenic. So this has a lot of adaptogenic qualities, but it's not an adaptogen.
Yep.
So that's the difference. But why I also love it is it has like over 30 different nutrients, so it's great as a multi.
Oh, yeah.
I recommend it a lot for a multi.
Okay, that's great.
And it gives you good energy, boosts your energy, and that's probably because going back to what you said with the testosterone.
Yep. Good. And other pantry items.
Well, you were talking about the flaxseed.
Yep.
Okay.
And let me think here. So flaxseed, maca, other things.
What about yams? Specifically yams, not sweet potatoes.
Nothing. I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Do you have something to add?
Well, I just hear a lot about when you're in menopause that yams, either in a cream form, can work really well.
Okay,
or
I know where
even eating yams can be.
Yes.
Yams are the ones that are white. They're not the orange sweet potato, right?
Well, and now I'm realizing where you're going with this is the topical progesterone cream that is available kind of over the counter is made from wild yam.
Okay.
So
So that's more for progesterone. Okay.
Yes.
And what happens if you're just eating yams every day?
That's a great question.
Okay. We'll find out.
So yeah,
I think it can help. I think it can help.
Yeah.
But it's just it's all of this stuff is always a matter of dosing.
Yeah.
How much of the yam do I actually have to eat to get the benefits to increase the progesterone? So if we circle back to when we were talking about our cycle, and then we go, if day one, if we know that our progesterone is low, maybe that's the day that you eat more yams.
Well, possibly. So when you may, because you're naturally low, I would say that you would want to boost that in the progesterone in the second phase.
Okay.
But you could think a theory, if your period is really heavy, often we give progesterone in heavy periods. So I could see that thought of, maybe I want to have some more progesterone boosting, but not give actual progesterone in that cycle because it might shut off the cycle.
Okay.
It has the power to do that. Probably not food-based.
Right, okay. And now, going back to the flax seeds when you're recommending them, is it to help with estrogen, or is it to help, are you recommending that somebody in menopause should be taking flaxseed every day, or how is that working?
Not necessarily. I like it for a few of the benefits, and so it one, I think it's like a good fiber, although sometimes I say chia for fiber as well. I like the omega-3 content, but chia has that as well. And so we're just looking at balancing that estrogen and progesterone with the flax.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think, I'm blanking on my other pantry items that I should have done my little printout just in case I drew a blank of what else I was thinking about to talk about from the pantry.
Well, we can come back to it.
Yes.
Yeah, those two are the flax and the yams is what comes to mind for me, and then the other ones are all superfoods, which helps balance,
Yes.
So if we want to talk about shatavari here, that's more, I guess in line with maca as a supplement, well, as a superfood, not really as a supplement.
I'm going to read this question. My doctor didn't want to order the blood test I asked for, saying it's not necessary. We already know you're in menopause. Yes. Sorry to hear that, Kim.
That's what she just said. As we were talking about that, they'll say that will happen.
Yeah.
That's why that's why we talked about the possibility of just running your own tests.
Yeah.
Or find another doctor. I think a lot of people don't realize this concept that you could fire a doctor.
Yeah.
Like you could just say, hey, you know what?
We're not a good fit.
Not a good fit.
Although if you're in an HMO, it's a little bit of a bigger loophole to find somebody. And it's a balance of looking at somebody's symptoms, reading labs, because he's probably going to be like, well, how am I going to change your treatment plan? Because that's what we're thinking as doctors is, if what I'm ordering is going to dictate how I'm going to treat you. And so I'd say yes. And sometimes it's also just nice to know, where am I?
Absolutely.
Am I down in the dumps, but maybe I'm fine, like I don't have symptoms, or I'm still holding on to some estrogen? So
yeah, these are all data points that we need to have, especially if you're starting to be your own main doctor. That's what this is all about. It's hard, and I think it's a little unfair for a lot of us too to want to go to a doctor, and then within the 10 or 15 minutes that we're talking to that person, that somehow magically they're going to solve all of our problems. And it's like, it just doesn't work that way. We have to be our own best advocate for our health.
Yeah.
And so when we see these options that we can get blood tests, then that gives us an opportunity to say, oh, that's another data point, and that's another part of where I'm at in my health journey at this point to get to this next part, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably a good segue into my next question here is, how do you know when to get help? Because this poor woman here, Kim, her doctor is telling her exactly what you just said. I'm saying fire the doctor, but it's like, you can get help, and you're a person that can help, right?
Yes, and sometimes what I do for my patients is I write a letter that says, "Dear doctor," let's say they have an HMO.
Okay.
"Dear doctor, we share a mutual patient. Could you be so kind as to order these things?" I will say that does lend some decent response.
Okay.
Where sometimes, I don't know if you ever have, if somebody else, if it's coming from another doctor, like if your doctor isn't willing to listen to you,
right?
Maybe they're willing to listen to a peer,
right?
That doesn't always work, but are we gonna have time? I would love to
absolutely talk about the shatavari.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to go back to this point here is, if their doctor isn't going to order the test and they want to do it because they have insurance and they go to you, do you take their insurance?
So if somebody has a PPO plan,
okay,
then I can order for them.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
so it's the HMO that's a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right.
So you carry a couple, so here's another local company.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of did put these things kind of in the what's in my pantry type thing, because they are,
they're superfoods.
Yes.
They're superfoods, yeah. Mm-hmm. Like shatavari is asparagus root.
Yeah, which I kind of forget that, which is great. And so this can be, I don't use a lot of shatavari, to be honest with you, in my practice, because I'm newly introduced to it.
Okay, use it every day.
Yeah,
these three here. Well, I take a lot of stuff, but I didn't start off taking a lot of stuff. So I take 2 capsules of maca every day, and I take a teaspoon of shatavari every day, along with the adrenal stress Cs. And I have my drink that I I circulate things, like things come in and out, you know,
Yeah.
because maca I don't take ever. I take it and then I get off it and then I take it again because it likes that. It likes
yeah.
to cycle.
I like
to
that
cycle
idea.
maca. Shatavari and adrenal stresses. Those are things that now have become part of my staple, so I'm going to do that for the next year. But there are other things that I cycle in and cycle out.
Yep.
And so because I know I'm 51, I know I'm somewhere in the vicinity of getting into menopause. I don't have a lot of symptoms at this point.
Great.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if it's the clean eating. I don't
I'm
know
sure
if it's
that
my,
helps.
I have no idea, but I'm going to take the win on this
Yeah.
one. Just like, okay, great.
And I would have guessed 41, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is great. Shatavari is asparagus root. It
Yeah.
works really well in relationship with maca to help balance hormones. So
How
again,
does it taste? Like, do you just
it
mix
tastes fine. I mean, I don't
mix
put
it
it
in
in
your smoothie?
water because it's just like a lot of these things don't taste great with water. But I have a drink that I'm fat adapted. This could be a whole other conversation. But my main drink that I have during the day has up to 10 tablespoons of fat in it, good fats.
Yeah.
Okay, so that drink that I have tastes really good.
Oh, good.
And so it
We'll put it in
masks
here.
a lot of these things. And so there are other powder drinks, like I have one turmeric and reishi, and that'll mask any, like, even it'll mask spirulina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if
Yeah,
you've tried
I've-
spirulina.
it's-
It's no bueno.
Yeah.
Does not taste good. Okay, so let's get on to this one and then our last question.
Perfect.
The adrenal stresses. That one's a combination of a variety of different herbs, ashwagandha being the main. You got adrenal
Yeah.
stresses on that one, right? Yeah, that is the first ingredient is the ashwagandha, and that is great, as you know, as an adaptogen.
Yes, and I love that it has the holy basil in it
Mhm.
as well, because that's really good for stress. I know that we,
Here's another question here.
yeah, Samantha asked, what do you consider low vitamin D? I consider low vitamin D less than generally 40. 40, you're like, okay, I really like it between 60 and 80 in the blood. Is that really a hormone as well? You know, they are calling it a prohormone. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how it's necessarily working in that pathway, but they are saying that it is a prohormone, and I like your blood level to be between 60 and 80.
Okay, good
Great.
question. Thank you. Our last question is, what are bioidentical hormones and are they safe? And I think we could just do a whole separate, maybe that's what we'll do next month, but
Yeah.
let's start this topic here because I have a gazillion questions on here. Probably
Okay.
not going to get through all of them, but let's just take it on the surface. What are they, and are they safe?
So, bioidentical. I sometimes like to break down the root words.
Mhm.
So, bio, our body, identical, matching what is inside our body. And what that means is it's not always natural. So, let me give you an example. Let's say I'm your primary care doctor. You come in and I decide, yes, that you're complaining of really heavy bleeding. And so your medical doctor might prescribe Premarin or Provera.
Okay.
Premarin is natural.
Okay.
It's made from horse urine.
Okay.
Horse urine is not bioidentical
Right.
to us. Bioidentical hormones, some of them are made from natural compounds, like we talked about the wild with the progesterone. And then others are just formulated so that the chemical compound is matching what we have. And one of the kind of the naturopathic doctor pioneers in this field, she's been practicing medicine, I think, for like 30 or 40 years, maybe 30. Is Dr. Tori Hudson.
Okay.
She's in Oregon, and so she just put on a continuing education event. She's very research driven.
Okay.
So we just had a review of all the literature to show that bioidentical hormones are safe. Because the big thing is people think hormones, like, oh my gosh, I'm scared about cancer. There are certain parameters of when we want to introduce it. So I think what's important to know is that if you are recently menopausal, if you want to take bioidentical hormones, it is most safe if you start it within 5 years of that stopping of the period. If it's been more than 5 years, I guess the literature shows that we might run a risk of an increased risk of stroke, perhaps. Other possible increased risks of I can't necessarily say cancers, but we want to be conscientious. So, and when I talk about bioidentical hormones, I'm talking about estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So generally in my practice, I do use bioidentical hormones because I do believe if the person, I would not, well, there's many different factors that kind of go around. So let's say somebody doesn't have a family, a strong family history of cancer or strokes, and they are having a lot of hot flashes and night sweats. I would think about giving them bioidentical estrogen. Now,
is this in the form of a cream?
It is.
Okay.
So I personally am a fan of the creams. And so estrogen in the bioidentical form can come as a patch. So there are some primary care OBGYN doctors that are giving you bioidentical estrogen in the form of, I know one of the patches is the Vivel dot. And so that can be good. And we always, again, I'm bringing in cost to it because sometimes the mass produced are actually more expensive than using the local compounding pharmacy, which here in town, in Murrieta, we do have a compounding pharmacy. So I may, for the woman who has hot flashes, which maybe we've tried these natural things, I like to I'd like to remind people, I like diet and lifestyle to be the foundation.
Right.
So let's
build off of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a lot of women tell me, like, oh yeah, I realize caffeine is a trigger for my hot flashes. Alcohol is a trigger. And when they take that out, maybe they're not suffering so much.
Right.
So let's say they're doing all of that, they're just still suffering. That's when we may want to talk about a biased cream. So it's 2 forms of estrogen, E2 and E3.
Okay.
And those can be greatly beneficial. Estrogen does have the capability of causing the endometrial lining to thicken.
Okay.
And that's why we definitely want to keep that balance with progesterone to help keep that down to a minimum.
So that's why you recommend both of them at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. So I have so many questions on this, and I know that this is running long.
Yeah.
Are you open for our next topic, like next month? Because we're going to do every 3rd Tuesday.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I think we should pick up on bioidentical, and then maybe even and then it'll be another huge topic, but tie this into thyroid.
Yes, I like that idea.
Okay.
And then I can brush up on the latest research, kind of have that, top of mind.
Right. Because I have so many questions in the form of, there's a lot of controversy when we're taking bioidenticals that the body, giving it the hormones constantly, that our bodies aren't made that way, right? We're not always getting estrogen, we're not always getting progesterone. So now here's a time in our life where we're always getting them. And I think that's kind of what you were getting to, is some of the risks involved in it.
Yep.
And then there's other forms of getting bioidentical hormones through the pellets, and what does that mean? And that's a whole other thing. And that's not what you're recommending, and I understand that.
Yeah.
So if we can, this I think was fantastic. I hope you guys agree with us. Thank you for joining us. Back just before we close, back to the pantry items, as you were talking, I want to also suggest to people, one of the things that works so well with my customers when they've had hot flashes is rose hips and dong quai.
Rose hips, interesting.
Rose hips, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. the amount of tinctures that I sell for hot flashes, and I have like three different ones. Like I have one rose hips, one Don Quai, and one called Menopause.
Okay.
And like they try each one, and they're all three are good, but they really love rose hips.
That's right. Interesting. I often use an herb of red clover sometimes for hot flashes as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe just kind of ending on that, I believe that our world, you know, our earth, botanical medicine is so powerful.
Yes.
And so it can definitely help us in cases of hormonal balance. And so this is great. I love it.
I love it, for sure. So our next one, I don't have a calendar in front of me right now. Hopefully it doesn't fall on my vacation, my first vacation in 6 years that I'm taking, but I don't think so. It'll be in June. So
and yeah,
we're planning the third Tuesday of every month that we're going to be here.
Yep.
So mark your calendar. We are going to pick up the bioidentical because I have so many more questions, and then introduce some topics here with thyroid, and then just keep the fun going.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for joining us. Pleased to meet everybody here on Alicia's Facebook Live, and thank you everybody that joined us over here on I Am a Clean Eater, and we'll be posting this to the Artisan's Palette page as well, and also on our YouTube channel. So thank you, Dr. Alisha.
Oh, thank you so much.
We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everybody.